Hey, welcome to the Summit Host Hangout podcast where you'll learn how to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit. No influencer status necessary. I'm your host, Krista from Summit in a Box, and today in episode 115, we have a special guest to talk about her experiences with co-hosting a virtual summit and having over half of her summit revenue come from sponsorships, which blew my mind when I learned about it. To give you some background information on our guest, she runs Simply Digital Design, a boutique studio that focuses on website and summit development. She's been an avid contributor to the WordPress community for the last 5 years. She's organized WordCamps, been a speaker. She's host of the WP Virtual Summit, co-host of the Page Builder Summit, and offers a Build Your Website Like a Pro course to those new to WordPress. I'll also say that several of my Summit in a Box students have worked with this guest to put their summit websites together, and they seriously go on and on about the experience, the results. And these are the websites where I go to do the registration page critique for these students. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this registration page is incredible. And they're like, oh, Anchen did it. So without further ado, let's dive in and talk with Anchen le Roux. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hello, Krista. Yeah, I'm very, very excited to be on today.
This is going to be such a blast. You're like one of my original Summit in a Box students before it was even Summit in a Box. So this is going to be extra fun. And we kind of knew each other a little bit, I feel like, before from all the WordPress nerdy stuff. So I'm very excited. Before we dive into the sponsorships, the co-hosting, give us an overview of the most recent summit you ran. Like, who was it for? What was it about? What were your goals with it? Kind of anything that comes up like that.
Okay, so it was the Page Builder Summit, and it was mainly for freelancers, agencies, developers, or DIYers that work with basically any of the WordPress page builders and interested to learn more about it. Yes, any specific questions on that? Or?
Yeah, no, I think that was awesome. What were your specific goals that you had with it?
So with these summits, because it's more of like a community-based summit. It's more peers than it's actually my audience. So the main thing was just because we didn't have WordCamps this year, and especially after WordCamp Europe was also cancelled, we just wanted to do something, and I co-hosted it with Nathan, and he runs a podcast, WP Builds, and it was actually his idea to do the whole page builder thing. So yeah, that was the main goal. And then obviously after doing Summit in a Box, I thought, but maybe it can actually be profitable doing it. And yeah, so we had a enumeration goal or whatever you call it, but yeah, we far succeeded, or had a lot more than succeeded. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. So I didn't realize that it was more of like a peer-based thing for you, and the community was the goal to kind of replace those WordCamps, and you blew it out of the water. So that is so awesome. And I was so excited when you shared your results with me, because not only did you hit, and I think over double your goals, but your conversion rate was 16% for the All Access Pass for a summit who didn't, the goal wasn't to make a ton of money through your All Access Pass, because it was for your peers. So that's just incredible. What did you think contributed to that high conversion rate?
So we had a fast action bonus of fast action price of $47. So I think that was really low. So it was low enough to be like an impulse buy. And we also had amazing bonuses. So just if you wanted one or two of those bonuses, then it would have been worth it. So there was templates that on its own cost more than $47. There were courses, and there were a lot of well-known authorities in the WordPress community. So I think it was kind of a no-brainer for people.
Yeah, and I think that's so cool, because there are a lot of summits out there with All Access Passes that it's don't care. 3 to 5% is the industry standard, and you guys went out and got 16%. And I agree. I think it's all about the price increases that you did and the fast action price, especially since that 47 is a no-brainer, no questions asked, and the incredible lineup of bonuses you have. When you have speakers contribute relevant bonuses, that's so awesome. And like you were hosting the Page Builder Summit, and I know there were a lot of like templates and stuff in there. Like how perfect. So that was so cool for me to see. Do you mind sharing what your numbers for the All Access Pass looked like roughly?
Yes. So most people took on the $47 one. So I can't remember exactly. I would say about 75 to 80%. And then half got it at 97 and then also at 147. So let's say 10%, 97 and 10% 147. And we ended up with more than, I think it was about, we actually still got sales in after the summit because we didn't really close it down officially, but it was just random sales. So I think we got about 22,000 from that, which is really,
that's
really
awesome.
good.
And your original goal was 20,000, right?
Yes, yeah, for the whole summit.
Like for the summit as a whole. Love that. So goal for the entire summit was $20,000, made $22,000 just for the All Access Pass. And then you over doubled that with sponsors. So can you walk us through what made you decide to kind of pursue that sponsorship route and what the process looked like for you guys?
Okay, yeah. So because it was mostly for peers, and we knew that we wouldn't be able to, the list wouldn't be that worthwhile, especially for me. It was actually for Nathan, but for me, we thought it would be good to try and make, because at that stage we didn't know if we're going to sell anything. So we thought the sponsor's going to be like the only income we get. So but we waited till very late. I think it was a month before the summit started that we actually started inviting people. And luckily Nathan's got a lot of contacts in the WordPress space, and both of us are friends with a lot of the plugin developers and things. I think the type of the topic was really, it made it really easy to get sponsors because, page builders, there are many that, and there's plugins and add-ons. Nathan was mostly in charge of reaching out to sponsors, but we created a page with different levels, even though I know that's not the advised way. We just created packages because we thought that would be the easiest. And we had like a buy button on the packages. So we had like a price table and we, add a button on the page itself so that they can buy straight away. So, we made it very easy for ourselves to do it, to get the money in. And I think we ended up with about 23 to 25,000 from sponsors.
That is so cool. And I love that you guys made it easy for yourself. Did you or Nathan have to get on any calls and kind of like haggle back and forth with packages or anything like that?
There were only, I think, one or two sponsors that we had to have a little bit more of a discussion with. And that's like bigger hosting companies and things. So it was a longer process. And
so would you say like connection that Nathan had with them existing was kind of the biggest part that had to play in it?
Yes, yeah, that and the audience, the sponsors, we had a lot of people just reach out to us wanting to be sponsors because they knew that the audience was the right audience for them. So, and also we had like really cheap options as well. We actually had a 250 micro sponsor. And so those were taken just by friends in the community. Like, I think the WordPress community is people like to support each other. So there are some, even though it's smaller agencies, they just support like on WordCamps and things. So I think that made it easy for people.
Yeah. So like just from an outsider looking in and to kind of give a little insight to people listening, I think the connections that Nathan has are huge. So if you're someone who has a podcast, has a platform, has a way to start making connections with people in a more like laid back, lower pressure way, like do that. So that when it comes time to ask a company for money, like you're not like, hey, my name is this, will you give me money? Like it makes it so much more natural. And I do think your topic and audience had a really big part to play too. I think you guys would have been successful with sponsorships even without the connection because of your topic and audience. Like you were hosting the Page Builder Summit. So people who are interested in page builders and using WordPress are going to come. That's like a duh for these companies who use WordPress or have page builders. So like, that's why you guys, I'm always preaching and pushing, get specific with your audience and your topic. And here is the perfect example of how that paid off. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Is there anything you guys would do differently next time for sponsorships?
Yeah, so we might change the packages a bit. So there was some of the things that we just promised. We didn't even know what it will, like pages on this site and things. So we might, add it more to the bigger packages or things like that. And then also we'll definitely start earlier. We were still, receiving information and creating pages like halfway through the summit. So definitely start earlier.
Yeah. What kinds of things were you giving your sponsors?
Most of the things was visibility on the page and visibility on the email. But so we had the micro sponsors just in the footer, but then the featured, like the gold and the two highest tiers were like more featured on the registration page itself. And then we also had the highest tiers. We had like a webinar that they could do during the summit and also a panel. So they ended up doing the panel during the summit and then the webinar a week after, but to the same audience and in the group and things like that. So I think that's a really good thing to offer your highest tiers. And then I think the two highest tiers, we had pages on the site itself, like a little booth. We wanted to do the booth, but we didn't have like really awesome software. So we just did like a page on the site and then linking out to that and then just mentioning them quite often. Yeah. So that was because we had that many sponsors, I think it was a bit repetitive mentioning that often, but people know that these things can't happen, especially in the WordPress space with WordCamps and things. These things happen with sponsors. So luckily the audience are very used to the whole sponsor thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So exposure and more exposure is what you gave them. And yeah, that's awesome. Another thing I wanted to ask you about was the fact that you co-hosted the summit. So we brought up Nathan a few times, who is your co-host for the Page Builder Summit. I've co-hosted once in the past and I love my co-host, but co-hosting is not a Krista thing. I won't do that again. So I'm curious to hear, what was the co-hosting process like for you?
Yeah, so it was a challenge at first because I had a certain idea, especially with following Summit in a Box. So I wanted to follow the process and I wanted to use the copy templates and everything and Summit in a Box, the tech stack. And of course, Nathan had some of his own ideas. So we had to, compromise a bit. But because I ran a summit in the past and Nathan was quite new to it, he kind of trusted me to run with most of the things and he did more of the like interaction with the speakers. And like I said, he organized the whole sponsors. I was more in charge of processes and tech and all the behind the scenes stuff and the design as well. And then he did more the community based things.
Yeah. How did you decide who was going to do what?
So I was just in charge of the project management and I just assigned. So most of the things that I thought especially with the email marketing, because we were using his platform. So everything with emails, I would assign to him and I would just help with the copy or give the templates for copy. And so, yeah, I think because I decided you do this and you do this, most of the tasks, if we didn't know exactly, both of us actually wanted to do it. So it wasn't that someone didn't want to do it or they was like, so we just, okay, you do it or whatever. So yeah, sometimes we just, talked about it.
That's what I ran into also when I co-hosted. It wasn't that there was things we didn't want to do. It's like, I kind of want to do it all. So I can do it my way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the biggest thing is like, you want to do it your way. So like in my case, I kind of took lead on that. But yeah, there were definitely things that I would have wanted to do it differently. Or there was like a page would be designed and it wouldn't be exactly what I wanted, but sometimes I just changed it or whatever.
Yeah. So if you're going to co-host, you need to be willing to be flexible and have those discussions and stuff like that. So that's good to hear that it went well overall, though. The last thing I wanted to talk about is diversity in speaker lineup. So your Page Builder Summit is based in the tech field, which is very dominated by white men. But you guys did a really great job of including women, various ethnicities. And like, I couldn't find someone is such a big excuse I hear. I couldn't find a person of color. I couldn't find this or that when it comes to having a diverse lineup. And I feel like you guys really showed that that's not a valid excuse because you did it in an industry that is so heavily dominated by white men. So how did you guys go about creating that diverse lineup in a field that isn't diverse.
So thanks for saying that we did a great job, because we it was really difficult for us. So starting out, that was, one of my main things. I run there's a WordCamp, the diversity workshop in WordCamp, and I run it here. So it is important for me, especially women and obviously people of color. So we started with a lineup, and I invited a lot of women, people I knew, but I didn't get the yeses that I wanted. So, and I think that is a separate thing that especially in the tech industry, it's as if the women, they want to do it, but they don't say yes, or they're unsure and they're not confident enough. It was about 3 weeks, just before we actually opened up. We got a lot of flack on Twitter still, even though we had a lot of women. But because we have over 37 speakers, the percentages, if you looked at the percentages, then it wasn't that great. So I was very upset. I was like, I really tried. And so I started reaching out to more women, and I did get a few yeses. I actually sneaked in, I think, 2 or 3 more people of color and women, like even, after the speaker closing. Nathan didn't even know. Every time he saw the speaker, there was someone else on, and he didn't say anything. So that's at the end, it worked out okay. It could have still been better, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I when I looked, I don't know, maybe it was at the point where you'd already added other people, but I was like you can tell that you guys worked for that. And I mean, I think this is good for people to hear too. It's not just like you tried in the beginning and then we're like, oh, that's the best I could do. You kept trying, like in several rounds, you kept doing what you could to make sure that, it wasn't all people that looked the same in your summit lineup. And I think that's awesome. And I hope others will, use that as an example and see that they can do that too. So thank you so much for being willing to share about all of this today, the sponsorships, the co-hosting, the diversity in lineups. It's always fun to hear someone else's perspective and experiences and all that stuff. I would love for you to tell everyone where they can go to learn more about you and what you offer. And I definitely want you to talk about your summit website services, because I feel like everyone needs to know what they are.
Okay. So the easiest probably is just Facebook or Instagram /Simply Digital Design. So that's the easiest. That's Simply Digital Design. And then I've got a sales page on simplydigitaldesign.co.za /summit done in a day. So the summit offers, it's based on Summit in a Box. So I use the base of Summit in the Box, and it's day rate. So if you do the whole summit, it's actually 3 different days. So, but there's certain things to do on the first day and certain things the second day and the third day. And you can also, if you don't do branding, you don't only need like the second or the third day. So it all depends on, so it's very flexible, whatever people need help with their summit.
That's awesome. So you do the full website setup, and we'll even do branding if they need it.
Yeah. So if it's a full thing, then it ends up being 3 days, 3 VIP days.
Awesome. Well, that is great. We'll be sure to link to that in the show notes so everyone can check it out. But thank you so much for being here.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. For show notes, resources we mentioned, and links to all of Anchen's good stuff, head to summitHostHangout.com/115. Now go out and take action to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit.